日本史学習に最高にもってこいのサイトサムライアーカイブスポッドキャストへようこそ。美しい自然にあふれてる縄文時代から波乱万丈な幕末まで全時代を網羅して日本史の隅から隅まで一緒に語り合いましょう。では早速日本史の世界へ。
Hey, welcome back to the Samurai Archives podcast. This is Chris, and today we have part 2 of our talk about the Ouchi clan documents and the Battle of Funaokayama. Enjoy! The only last thing, and you kind of touched on it, but you didn't get deep into it, but I found it interesting, is how Ouchi Yoshioki used the commendations and such that basically his correspondence to show, kind of position himself above or equal to or disinterested in the people he was sending it to, and other things like where he put his signature, the name he used, and sort of this, how he would use these little strategies to kind of show these people, like, you know, I'm the one in control, or there would be, or I think there was one that was implication of like, well, you're not really in my sphere of influence, so I'm not terribly interested in talking to you. Things like that.
Okay, so kind of going back to like the relationships and how these documents show these relationships between the Shugo, in this case, Ouchi Yoshioki, the Bakufu, so Yoshitada, the shogun himself, and the different subordinate families of various stripes, mostly wrapped up under the heading of Hokoshu. So like I said, these documents, they're letters, sort of, but they're written in an official style. So if you the best way to think about it, and I think we talked about this in the podcast on documents that I did, is that these are like military commendation forms. Like there's a set language that goes in it, and that reflects who it's coming from, who it's going to, and the power relationships, right? So if you think about it today, we get like, I mean, I was in the military, wrote both received and wrote award documents, commendations for different people, and there's a set vocabulary that you use, a set style that it goes into in order to do that. So when we look at it, I mean, like today, I'd be able to look at a document at a U.S. Army award document, and I could look at a certain like field, right? Like it'll say, who the recommending officer is, who the reviewing officer is, who the issuing authority is, right? So all of those have a meaning. The recommending officer is the commanding officer or superior of some sort of the soldier being given the award, who is writing the actual recommendation. And then the reviewing officer would be his superior, who's confirming that, yep, okay, this is well written and this makes sense, and yes, it seems to justify whatever award this person is getting, so I'll sign off with it. And then the actual like issuing authority is the final authority that says, yep, let's stamp it, let's okay, give this guy a Bronze Star or a Legion of Merit or whatever award, right? But I can look at that. If I were a historian, however many years from now, I could go through those documents and pull and understand what the relationships of the names to the people, right? So I could see, Captain John Smith was the commander of Private Joe Snuffy, and he reported to, Colonel so-and-so, right? I think people can kind of get an idea from that. So that's kind of the same thing that I'm trying to do as I look through these documents, and you look at who's issuing the document, what signature style that they're using, what the words are, and who these are going to, and then what happened to them, what were they done with them. So what's particularly interesting to me is Ouchi Yoshioki's issuing of these documents and the differences that you see depending on what Hokoshu family he's issuing these to. For instance, the Masuda. The Masuda were a very important family in Aki, and eventually, as we get later on, they're listed as a retainer of the Ouchi. But that's a very tentative not tentative. That's a very tenuous conclusion. And we see that in the way that Yoshioki addresses them. He issues a document, but it's very formal. He uses very respectful language to them. And it's very clear from it that he is not simply issuing a document that says that claims authority over them. It's much more treating them less as a direct subordinate and more as, hey, thanks for showing up to the battle and doing great things. We appreciate it. Cool, right? Whereas with others, there's particularly the Amano and the Hiraga and the Sufu, he's writing it in a way that is like, at the Battle of Funaokayama, you came and did great service for me. And it's written in a way where he is very clearly claiming authority over them, if that makes sense. Okay, so why is this important? Well, like we talked about, there's this whole kind of push-pull, trying to figure out, where each of the three in this triangle, the shogunate, the shugo, and the hokoshu, are trying to maintain the most out of their power relationships, right? So they are, he's writing it by writing it in an authoritative manner, not just, oh, hey, great, thanks for showing up, but you did good service for me. That extends his power over them. And by accepting these documents and taking it and then putting it, in their family registry for their family history or whatever, that's a tacit acceptance of his authority over them. So it's interesting because there's several in this series where the Masada, Amano, and Hiraga and the Sufu all receive documents from both Ouchi Yoshioki and Ashikaga Yoshitada. So both of them independently are trying to be the ones that reward these hokoshu, right? And by accepting either of them, then they're saying, okay, yeah, great. We think of it as, oh, well, of course you want rewards for what you do, right? But we don't often think about the reciprocal obligation that then says is, oh, if you're the one who's rewarding me for doing something, then you're the one that has the power to reward me and then the power to then tell me what to do in the future, right? So that's what's going on here, okay? Three kokujin, the Watanabe, Tagaya, and Ogasawara, only received documents from Yoshioki. And two, Kobayawa and Takahashi, only received them from the shogun. So already we're seeing a split, right? Just by looking at who they're to and who they're from, you see an interesting split of, okay, these are four families that they're kind of competing over. Here's a couple families that, are clearly only directly connected to Ashikaga Yoshitada. And here's some that are only directly connected to the Shugo Ouchi Yoshioki. So, you can see who's kind of fallen under his sphere, who's trying to maintain their independence, and who's kind of up for grabs, if that makes sense.
So are you saying that there was some political tension between Yoshioki and Yoshitada, or some kind of political maneuvering, or?
There's certainly political maneuvering as to how tension-ridden it was. That's a tougher question that I'm probably not qualified to answer. I would certainly want to hear Professor Conlon's knowledge on that, because he's way more into the weeds on this than I am. But referring to tension, I mean, yes. Ouchi Yoshioki was named Sakyo Daibu. The controller or governor of the left of Kyoto, at the same time that Hosokawa Tadakuni, who was also the new Kanrei, Yoshitada's Kanrei, or deputy shogun, was named the Ukyo Daibu, so the controller of the right of Kyoto. And, we often talk about how these titles are symbolic, but here they're not. This actually gave administrative authority over, one half or the other half of Kyoto to each of these people, right? And so therefore, some of these documents are issued depending. This is like getting into the real weeds here, but when I look at the documents, one of the things I looked at was what signature was Yoshioki using. And in some of the documents, he uses Sakyo Daibu, that title. And in some of the documents, he uses his name. And then in some of the documents, he uses a slightly adjusted title or something. So that carries meaning as well. I don't want to go ahead and say with 100% certainty that if he used the court title Sakyo Daibu, then he's not claiming individual authority over that person, but he's doing it within the structure of the court system. Right? So he's doing it as the deputy of the shogun, holding the title of, authority over the left side of Kyoto. So in this case, the eastern side, based on the left being, the left as you're facing south from the Imperial Palace. But that's neither here nor there. So whereas when he just simply signs it by himself as his name, the implication is that that's on his own authority. That he's not simply rewarding you as from his position as an authority figure in the court structure, right? That it's him. It's a direct personal authority that he has over you. So that was interesting to look at. Okay, so who is he sending these to? Who is he sending them to under one name? Who is he sending them to under another name? And is there correlation there? Quite honestly, I'm not ready at this point because I just looked at a small subset, right? This would take a lot more work to go through different sets of documents. I looked at one series of documents in one collection, right? I'd have to go through other document collections and do better statistical analysis to come up with a more accurate assessment. But it's certainly there that there's a difference in who he's sending these to signed under one name versus who he's sending to signed under the other. We can tell that this matters. So these are the kind of things that I think this was kind of the whole point of this exercise for us, is that, you learn as you go through more and more documents, okay, why is he using this name? Why is he using that name? Why is he signing it in this manner? Oh, why is his signature at the front of the document as opposed to the end of the document? That makes a big difference. That's called a sorehan. I think I discussed this in the documents podcast before, but that, for people who haven't listened to that, that's a clear indicator of I'm the man. And we know that because you look at documents signed by people like Ashikaga Takuji or other shogunal figures, and when they switch to signing those, signing in that way, that's the no kidding, this is an order, you will listen to me, and I am the ultimate authority mark, right? So that's huge. So that the fact that Ouchi Yoshioki has, I think, 2 documents in this collection signed, at least one signed as sorehan, where his kao or his signature mark is at the front of the document, is him making a statement of ultimate authority. The question would be, is that a statement of just ultimate authority over the addressee, or is it a statement of ultimate authority, period? And I don't have enough, 43 documents is not enough for me to go through and determine that. Another interesting thing, though, is the reception of these. One of these letters, though, in fact, the one with the sorehan document, That was the one that I translated as part of a classroom exercise, and then we came up with one translation, and then when Professor Conlon was back in Japan this summer, he talked to somebody at the Tokyo Historiographical Institute at Tokyo University, who gave us a little more insight into what was going on there. But this is a letter. It's actually in Princeton's collection, and it's up online on the website. And Chris, you can put the website. I'll make sure you have it, and you can put it in the show notes. But it's written. It's he's got the Sodehan signature on it, and it's written to a warrior praising him. But the original document has the name crossed out or like scratched out so that you can't see it, which is very odd. Like, why would a warrior who had gone and fought in a battle and risked his life or whatever, why would he scratch his name out of this document saying how great he was for doing these things? I mean, nobody in the audience is going to answer, so
I thought it was a rhetorical question.
No, I mean it somewhat is. It somewhat is.
I think it'd be. Well, I mean, he could be. Maybe he doesn't want someone to know that he at one point served this particular lord. But if that was the case, he could just throw the letter away. So.
Yeah, you're on the right track though. Okay, because like I said, acceptance of these was implicit subordination, right? So many of these were often kept in family document collections, and one of the good things about studying Japanese history in these periods is that as long as the family survived, oftentimes their documents survived. It also kind of limits as to what where and what you can study. One of the reasons why I'm probably going to end up spending a lot of time in Kagoshima and studying the Shimazus because their documents survive, as opposed to some other ideas where it might be really cool to study the Takeda, and everybody loves to talk about the Takeda, but the Takeda are wiped out. Their documents don't survive, at least not in anywhere near the same condition as other families. But I go study the Shimazu, and their documents extend back into the Heian period all the way through the Bakumatsu, and I can have a field day with that. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, you essentially hit very close to it. It's that we've got a Hokoshu family who doesn't know if they want to be under Ouchi Yoshioki's authority, and are afraid that maybe future generations, if they dig this out, or it may in fact be the future generations who were, going back, pulling up this document, looking at it in their metaphorical filing cabinet and going, hey, do we want to be known as having been a retainer of Ouchi Yoshioki? No, we don't. All right, cross the name out, and hide it, right? Hide the document. So yeah, I mean, so when you think about, okay, well, why would somebody do that? It's because these documents carry this sort of meaning. It's not just a simple, hey, great job, attaboy, right? They indicate these power relationships. And if later on your family, let's say it's 1570, right? And this family goes back and looks at their records and go, ooh, Ouchi, yeah, under Yoshitaka, they got wiped out by the Sue and kind of look like a bunch of losers now. Do we really want this document that says that we were underneath Ouchi Yoshioki's command? Nah, maybe not. Why they didn't just destroy it? I don't know. I mean, I can think of scenarios, but it's all speculation as to why you would do that. But to me, that's a very clear indicator that these documents had more than just symbolic meaning. That they were considered legal documents, and that just like, whether we're talking about land deeds or whether we're talking about anything else, these could be used later on by successive generations to kind of prove either their family lineage, and the fact that, my grandfather, Yoshi fought at Funaokayama and did great service, and see, I've got a document here from Ouchi Yoshioki that says that. Or maybe you've got a document from Ouchi Yoshioki and you've got a document from the Ashikaga, right? And you're like, which one of these do I want to use? Which one makes my family look better, right? And that's the interesting thing for me. So I'll give you a couple of the figures that I used in my paper, kind of tracing the connections, and you'll see like the spider web that I've got of who were confirmed as retainers and who got these letters and who got letters from multiple people praising them and so on. So yeah, it's very interesting. On the flip side, you've got letters that are written from the subordinate side, sending in their list of, my 20 guys here got wounded, please reward me for it, right? And that's a very clear indication of authority coming from the bottom up. Like, you're not going to send this list asking for rewards to somebody who you don't think is going to reward you because they're not in charge of you. So yeah, I think that really is what I tried to pull out. And I realized by the end of this project that drawing these nice lines of who's in charge of whom is not nearly as easy as I anticipated, but it ends up being more interesting to me anyway to see that there's this political tension going on. And as I go through other families and different sets of documents, this is certainly something that I'll be looking out for and trying to capture in the best way possible.
Okay, and that's it for another episode of the Samurai Archives podcast. For show notes and other things, go ahead and check out samuraipodcast.com. And if you'd like to support the podcast, please check out patreon.com/samuraiarchives. A shout out to everyone that has helped us out there so far. And if you'd like to get some Samurai Archives podcast gear, we've got some over at the Samurai Archives shop. T-shirts and mugs and things like that. cafepress.com/samuraiarchives or shopsamurai.com. Either one should work. So that's it for the episode, and we'll be back in about a month.